Sorry, guys, I was muted. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, so uh, I wanted to. Good morning, happy Saturday, you guys. So we'll be talking the Ben Wilson story. So this is a sensitive subject matter. You guys, I was kind of young back then, so I don't recall exactly what happened. So I thought this would be a great chance for us to go over the Ben Wilson story together. I had a live the other day, and Gardis Watts, shout out to him. He was a guest on the live, and we were talking about Harold Washington, and he brought up the Wars, and it was the same year the tragedy of Ben Wilson happened. So I thought this would be a good time for us to revisit this story. Our prayers are with his family. I don't know much about Ben Wilson, but I did a little research, but we'll be watching this together. I did drop the link in the chat. If you have any kind of information you would like to share or memories, we just ask that you're respectful. And yeah, let's watch this documentary on Ben Wilson. Hit the like button and happy Saturday to you. Good morning, Big Mike. If you would like, are you saying now? If you would like to come up, you're welcome to. You're welcome to share anything. You guys can call it anytime. Okay.
It's Benji's number. It'll be remembered forever.
The kid was unbelievable.
Ben Wilson was the LeBron James of that time.
Everybody wanted to play with Ben, be like Ben, act like Ben.
He was a Silky Magic Johnson.
He was before his time.
In our era, he was the Isaiah Thomas growing up.
No one can come close to Benji. I'm sorry, that's the honest to God truth.
The attention was focused on Ben for a reason, and I don't think God make mistakes.
He was flying so high.
As the result of a tragic and senseless act of violence, he is dead.
His lights went out so suddenly.
Chicago may be a football town and baseball crazy in the summertime, but at its core in the city, basketball is a way of life. And we're not just talking about the MJ glory days. We're talking about the kids who built their games here, like Isaiah Thomas on the west side, and more recently, Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose on the south side. But 25 years ago, somebody else owned these courts in Chicago. A skinny, silky kid with a smile named Benji.
At center for the Wolverines, a junior, 6'7", number 25, Ben Wilson.
If you haven't seen him, you're in for a treat, 20 a game.
I have a goal, and, I want to be successful, and so I do what it takes to be successful. And that is, when I go home, I study and do my work and go to class.
Kind of corny stuff.
Well, it works.
Everything seemed to work for Benjamin Wilson, but especially basketball.
Dribble, Wilson, go!
Born and raised on the city's south side, he was the middle of 5 brothers. And it wasn't long before that orange rock was the fiber of his life.
It was like Bruce Lee with 2 basketballs. He controlled 2 basketballs just on his fingers. It's just unbelievable. It's like a Harlem Globetrotter. Just unbelievable what he could do with that ball with his fingers. 3 fingers, palm the ball like this.
And with Ben and his ball around, the Wilsons' neighbors were always up early.
The neighbors used to be furious about them being woke up in the morning because he was always dribbling the basketball. And one of the next door neighbor, Mr. Robinson, said Benji was his alarm clock to get up and go to work in the morning.
And by his sophomore season, little Benji was now growing like a weed.
He came on so fast. He was barely 6 feet tall when he showed up. Nobody dreamed that this kid was going to turn into what he eventually did, but he grew 3 inches before his sophomore year, moved up to the sophomore team, grew 3 or 4 more inches after that.
He went from 6'1" to 6'8" in about a 2 or 3 month period. He just grew, but he still had the basketball skills.
By 16, Wilson could still play like a point guard, but now he soared like an eagle with his new 7-foot, 3-inch wingspan.
Inside, Bankston drops it down to Wilson for a turnaround.
We used to imitate Ben when he shoots his jump shot. It was like he'd shoot it, and then he'd put his wrist back like this and run down the court some type of way. But everybody used to emulate him in high school. That's how big he was in high school.
And
thinking about this, I was reading that people would go to this, like the games would be overcrowded because of Ben Wilson. I wonder how word got around, now that we're dealing with technology of today. This is very interesting how so many people knew about him just in high school.
Everybody wanted to be around him. Benji's game and personality drew in friends and admirers from all over, including the NBA.
Magic Johnson loved him. I answered my mother's phone, said, is Benji there? I said, no, Benji's not here. I'm like, well, who's calling? He said, Magic. I said, Magic Johnson? He said, yeah, this is Magic Johnson. He said, yeah, I want to, see Benji. We're supposed to play some basketball today. I'm like, wow, Magic Johnson's calling my little brother. Then we got Isaiah Thomas, Mark Aguirre.
When I see Shaquille O'Neal, I think of Benji all the time. The personality, the charisma, everything, the showman, the articulation. Shaq, has a lot of personality, just like Benji.
Funny, big sense of humor. Loved to joke around, and you wouldn't believe it. He was one of the best break dancers and pop lockers you could ever imagine. At 6'9", he's popping and locking it. I couldn't believe it. I can't dance a lick, but he could.
Ben Wilson steps in, scores!
6'8", 8.5", can do it all. When I say do it all, and do it gracefully, with the greatest of ease, and it looked so pretty when he was doing it. It was smooth, it was silky, it was just, you had to have that camera to capture that moment. I mean, he was that type of player.
Look at Simeon. Wilson slides down the lane. Smooth as silk, as you said, Ralphie.
As a junior, he was a starter on a Simeon lineup full of seniors. Benji was third-team All-State, and the Wolverines went 30-1 for the 2A state title. That put Simeon on the map.
I think he helped push Simeon into a more global, nationwide type school, basketball power. I remember our senior year, we thought we were world beaters. We can go anywhere and play anybody, anytime.
After winning the state championship in
you guys, I put the link for the full documentary in the chat as well, just in case you want to watch it for yourself, because of course I have to give commentary for fair use. But anyone know, now this is, I'm not I didn't go to a Chicago high school, but I have some Chicago people here. Is Simeon one of the biggest public schools in Chicago, or like what number is on the list? I'm only asking because Simeon and CVS, I know those to be popular. Simeon, CVS, it's one more. Kenwood, I think, people talk about all the time. On the south side, rather. But when they have their reunions here in Chicago, it's like overwhelming. They come out. It's overwhelming. So I was just wondering if anyone could get some insight on how popular it was to be at Simeon in 1984 at that time. Or did Benji make Simeon the popular school? I'm just wondering.
In the spring of 1984, Ben kept improving, stunning scouts at the Nike All-American Camp. He left as the first kid from Illinois to ever be ranked as the #1 player in the entire country.
It was clearly.
Wow, #1 player in the country.
Benjamin Wilson was the #1 player in the country. No one came close. It wasn't a close race. It was Benji and the rest of us. That's just like it was Michael Jordan and everybody else. That's how it was. I mean, the kid was unbelievable.
Lowell Hamilton, who went to Providence St. Mel, later on went to University of Illinois. Kenny Battle, who went to Northern at first, went to Illinois. Nick Anderson, Marcus Liberty, Irvin Small, myself, and he was better than us all.
I saw Ben on the AAU circuit in the summer after my junior season. He really stood out. I mean, smooth, could shoot it, could pass it, could handle the basketball, just really fluid for a high school player. He looked like a man amongst boys.
In the summer, Wilson would team up with his buddies Nick Anderson and Tim Hardaway for the very first Prairie State Games. They called it their Olympics, and sure enough, they left with gold.
Prairie State Games, I remember that like it was yesterday. It was a group of guys, and we all consider ourselves the best in Chicago or the best in the country. We didn't think that nobody could beat us, and we all came together, put our egos aside.
Obviously, when people looked at him, we're talking 1984, 83, 84, we're talking Magic Johnson type backcourt perimeter type player.
I would have been a teammate of a 10, 12-time All-Star. And that's probably an understatement because we called him Magic Johnson with a jump shot.
Still to come on 25, The Ben Wilson Story.
I was in library class and I heard something say, "I got shot! I got shot!"
How family and friends learned about Ben Wilson's death.
I see them bringing my brother out the emergency room with blood all over the sheet.
We had to see him. And we knew he was gone.
I guess, some things you never forget. I just can't forget it.
And then later, what the number 25 means.
The best player at Simeon wears number 25.
Never touched another number. Never will. It's a day and a time that I will never, ever forget.
It brings back some bad memories because Ben and I, we was real close.
It still resonates with a lot of pain.
It's one of those things that you just know as
You guys, I'm gonna be. I do not know the Ben Wilson story, so this is making me emotional because I don't know what happened, and I'm looking at the chat, and some people are saying, Big Mike said one of his killers. One. Oh, okay. Let me bring Gardis Watts up. Thanks for calling, Gardis. You're live.
Good morning, Berg.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How about you?
I'm good this morning. Thanks for calling in. I remember people talking about Ben Wilson, but thanks for bringing it up the other day because at that time I was only like 5 years old, so I didn't know what was happening. But I remember people always saying this was the greatest basketball player in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he was the best high school player in the country during that time.
Wow,
So
in the country.
Yeah, he was that good, and I was having a chat with Big Mike. He was asking me how good Ben would have been in this era, and Ben was like more of the precursor to big man handling the ball and scoring everywhere on the court. So in traditional basketball, big men are not supposed to dribble. They're supposed to just get it close to the basket, post up, and score. Ben was that type of guy who played more like a guard. What I mean by that is, guards are normally smaller, the smaller players who dribble up the court and shoot. Ben was that type of person that can do it all. As far as, what he can do on the court, he could do what a guard can do. He could do what a big man can do. And so when you think about the guy who came after him, and you probably don't recognize his name, but I think a lot of people who followed high school basketball like me remember is Marcus Liberty. Marcus Liberty was a guy who was just like Ben. And he came like right after Ben, was tragically murdered, and was also one of the number one players in high school as well. Played for King High School, and then went to Illinois, and actually went to the NBA for a little bit. So, but Ben was kind of like one of those new age players that you probably see today in the NBA. And he would have been a real good player if he would have kept going, if he wasn't tragically killed.
Oh, okay. Well, are you gonna stay a little bit?
Sure.
To watch with us? Okay.
Yeah.
This is really something else. This is something else. Okay, you guys, let's continue.
Isn't happening, and it happened.
Welcome back to 25, the Ben Wilson story. Here again is Luke Stuckmeyer.
Ben Wilson had it all. Sizzling basketball skills and an electric personality. But on November 20th, 1984, it was a gray, cold fall day, a lot like this one. And on Vincennes Avenue, right in front of Simeon High School, the day was about to get even darker.
When the old die, and they've served their time and lived their lives, there's another kind of adjustment. But when the sun is eclipsed at high noon, or when the sun is rising, it's so different. I mean, Ben's sun was rising, moving toward midday, and then it became midnight at midday.
At 12:37 on November 20th, Ben Wilson was walking with Chatan, his girlfriend and mother of his 10-week-old son, Brandon. They were a block from the school. Students like to gather at a small store around lunchtime. But Benji bumped into two freshmen from Calumet High School on the sidewalk. They pulled out a .22 caliber handgun and shot him twice. One bullet piercing his aorta, and the other tearing a hole in his liver.
To this day, I still don't know the story. I've never tried to seek out the story because the only person that could tell it is Benji and Chatan.
People running through the halls, screaming and yelling, teachers, and I mean, it was just chaotic. chaos everywhere.
Losing blood quickly, Ben was taken to St. Bernard Hospital. And while the chaos continued at Simeon, Benji's brothers were miles away, with a sibling connection that still haunts them.
I was in library class, and I heard something say, "I got shot! I got shot!" I was in library class, and I was like, I'm going crazy, but then I thought about Cain and Abel, when Cain slew his brother, and the Most High said, "Where's your brother? I hear his blood crying from the earth." Right there, something let me know that he got shot.
And a matter of fact, I had a dream 2 nights in a row before he died. Somebody or something tried to tell me. I had a dream that night, Benji was dead. Next day I had a dream, Benji was dead.
At that moment, I heard my brother's voice say, "I got shot," just like I said to you there. It came to me like, so it's something there. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? My mom always said, you want the Most High to talk to you, you gotta be quiet, you gotta be in a quiet place. And I was in library class the time my brother was shot, and I heard him. And when I found out, I went berserk.
He waited for surgery as a huge crowd gathered at the hospital. Benji lost 4 pints of blood.
Okay, so I didn't know that he had a baby. Oh wow. 10-week-old baby. Also, I was looking at the comments. So it was said that they were looking for someone who robbed a relative. Benji could not fit every person's description. He's 6'8", right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just, I don't know. This is heavy.
And it gets worse because you just mentioned his son, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
He died 3 years ago in a car accident.
No way. Oh no. Prayers to the family.
Yeah. So that was, I remember reading about that 3 years ago, and I was like, wow. I have a good friend who actually played on Simeon. Well, he played on Simeon after Ben, because Ben was older than us, but he played on Simeon in the later years, and he had told me about that. I was like, wow, that is just, I mean, it's even more tragic when you think about it, because Brandon was, I don't even think, was Brandon even born when his father was alive? Or I think
they said 10 weeks so far.
Okay, yeah. So yeah. So like I said, the story gets even sadder.
Oh. Yeah, prayers to the family. This is something else. Like this is tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go up. Put one up here. And Big Mike, we're gonna get to your comment too. He was saying that one of the killers is an activist now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
wow.
Because he's they were I think they were fighting against their case, because I think they said that they didn't they didn't shoot him, or I can't remember what the story was. But they're activists now. So
wow. We're gonna play. I have found the video where Billy, I believe his name is, he had wanted to share his side of the story as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Let's go to the next one.
And never regained consciousness. A traumatic time for his then 7-year-old brother.
I asked one of the doctors, I say, do you know where I can find Bill Wilson? And he was like, I can't tell you where he's at. I said, well, I'm his brother. I need to see, I can bring him back. He was like, well, I'll take you upstairs. He wasn't supposed to take me upstairs. And he takes me upstairs, and I see them bringing my brother out the emergency room with blood all over the sheet. And I see his feet. So I grabbed his feet, and his feet were cold. At that time, my mom was walking down the hallway. And I said, Ma, I just saw Benji. He gonna be okay, but his feet was cold. And that's when my mother sent me home.
Me and Kenny Allen, we climbed up on the fire escape to see where Ben was at. And I think it was the 9th floor, 8th floor. And we seen Ben on the floor by itself. That's what brothers do. We weren't supposed to. I don't like to talk about that, but we had to see him. They was telling us that, you know, he's in stable condition, and Kenny Allen pulled the sheet back. We saw him. We had to see him. And we knew he was gone.
Early the next morning, the day his senior season was supposed to start, Ben Wilson was pronounced dead at the age of just 17. Even President Ronald Reagan called the family to offer his condolences. The news was everywhere.
The Channel 2 News at 6.
Ben Wilson died just...
The Simeon High School basketball star died.
Ben Wilson's death is a tragedy.
A senseless act of violence. He is dead.
Ben Wilson's struggle for life ended.
Ben Wilson's alleged teenage assailant.
It involved an extraordinary young man.
He was gunned down.
It's not how long you live, but how well you live.
Nothing we could do anymore.
Then seeing my brother in that casket. Tried to wake him up, like, man, you ain't dead. Get up, man. Get up. Get up, bitch. You ain't dead, man. Get up. Then seeing the two guys who did it, and the lies.
You know Ben Wilson? You know him?
After the shooting, cousins Billy Moore and Omar Dixon were taken into custody, charged with murder and attempted robbery. Moore was later sentenced to 40 years for pulling the trigger, and Dixon 30 years as his accomplice. On the day that Benji died, his Simeon teammates decided to play their first game of the season without number 25.
Ben's Simeon High School teammates are indeed preparing for a basketball game.
Benji Wilson's teammates are behind me watching the warm-up for the second game of the evening.
All please rise for 1 minute of silence in honor of Simeon basketball star, Mr. Ben Wilson.
So I actually was reading the comments. Someone put in the comments, I'm sorry I missed who it was, said they sent, was it Big Mike? Simeon retired number 25?
They didn't necessarily retire. It's basically reserved for the best player on Simeon team. So Simeon's, pumped out a lot of good basketball players that's gone to the league, including Derrick Rose, Jabari Parker, Nick Anderson. These are guys who came out of Simeon, and they typically wear the number 25. Some of them actually wear 25 into their college and playing careers as well, with the exception of Rose. Rose, when he got to the Bulls, he switched up to 1, but he wore 25 at Simeon, wore 25 when he played at Memphis. Same thing with Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson wore 25 all throughout his playing career, college and pro. So, yeah, it's normally reserved for the best player on the Simeon team.
Thanks for that, Gardis.
And you could hear a pin drop, and I can raise my head up. You can see people crying and, tears rolling down their eyes. And this was the first time I ever seen a tear roll down my coach's face and Coach Hambrick. I kind of looked to my right and looked down, and I seen a tear roll down. It was emotional. It was an emotional day. It was an emotional time. I don't even know how we played the game, but we did.
Earlier in the day, students sobbed at Simeon, simply overwhelmed with grief. But Benji's mother stood tall in the gymnasium.
So today I ask the support and love of all of you to keep Benji's memory of dignity, strength, and love alive.
The wake was held on the gymnasium floor, and 8,000 people came to see Benji lying in his number 25 jersey. The line stretched blocks outside of the school. Mourners waited 7 hours.
I still have dreams about him. Like, you know, he came back and he was able to play again, but just dreams.
The Wilsons spent their Thanksgiving with Reverend Jesse Jackson. They planned a funeral that drew 10,000 mourners at Operation Push headquarters.
It was packed and floating in tears.
I've never seen such grieving from young people, from coaches, from older people, from people that didn't even know him. It was something that I will always remember. It was something that I hope I never have to witness again.
Sometimes I sit down and, you know, when I'm going through things, you know, I speak, you know, just like I would to my grandparents, you know, hey Benji, how you doing? That type of thing. I just can't forget about it. So this is very emotional.
We used to joke about and fantasize about one of us making professional basketball, and we used to say whoever make it, we was going to take care of the next person.
He would not have just been a pro. He would have been a great pro, you know, and that's the sad thing about it. His potential was never realized.
Where would Ben Wilson be today at our age right now, 40 years old, 42 years old? He would have had, I believe, would have had a great NBA basketball career. He loved doing stuff with people, and he loved, you know, the game of basketball.
You're watching 25, The Ben Wilson Story. Here again is Luke Stuckmeyer.
It was the senseless death of a rising star. Ben Wilson meant many things to many people, and 25 years later, the pain still isn't gone. In fact, those who are closest to him and some people who never even met him are making sure today, 25 years later, that Ben Wilson's name, number, and legacy are never forgotten.
Never touched another number. Never will.
Nick Anderson went on to do great things in basketball, but he never forgot his best friend, honoring Benji by wearing number 25 at the University of Illinois. And
I'm sorry, I missed that part. So Nick Anderson went to Simeon as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. He played with him.
Wow, what a beautiful tribute. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then for 13 seasons in the NBA, even demanding it in his contracts.
That number 25, I can remember when I first put it on as a professional basketball player. I used to tell people that it's a part of me and it's a part of Benjamin Wilson, because that easily could have been me. And I wouldn't wear another number. Never.
Soon a tradition would start at Simeon. 3 years after Benji's passing, the late coach Bob Hambrick brought his number 25 out of unofficial retirement. Only the Wolverines' very best players would get the honor of trying to live up to the team's highest standard.
Now I realize the importance of me being the first one to, you know, wear it. Bob Hambrick brought it out of retirement for me. You know, it's just like now the feeling is like, you know, I feel just honored.
I wore number 25, and you know, it's a different feeling when you put that jersey on. You have to represent. You know, you have to represent with that number 25 jersey.
Whenever I see 25, I think of BJ, you know, and it's just a funny thing.
Interesting. Did you notice his logo, Gardis?
Oh, who?
Tim Bankston, Thornton Fractional.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I remember Tim Bankston, and I also know the previous two gentlemen that they showed on there, Cyrus McGinnis and Mario Bailey. It was so funny. We used to all be in the basement of a common friend's house, playing Sega Genesis back in the late 80s. So yeah, I personally know those two gentlemen, and then like I said, I remember Tim Bankston too.
Wow. Okay, thanks, Gardis.
Every time I think about him, I think about him often. You know, that was my buddy. That was my best friend.
Make a play. He's going one-on-one. From off the score. Derek Rose with the bucket.
One of the last Simeon players to wear Benji's number 25 was Derek Rose. And the Bulls star learned about the legacy long before he led the Wolverines to back-to-back state titles.
It's definitely not just a number. You just got to go out there and play, man. If you wear that number, you just got to hold the team. You're the leader for the team. But mine is kind of different. I had Timothy Flowers. He was like the leader of the team. I did mine by showing my work ethic. But the best player at Simeon wears number 25.
Ladies and gentlemen, in honor of number 25, the late, the great Ben Wilson.
And last week at Ben Wilson Gymnasium, Simeon finally retired number 25 for good. Benji's brothers and former teammates were back together as the school honored Ben, Coach Hambrick, and Derek Rose.
Right when I was coming into Simeon, I knew he was some type of legend. Right when I got there for freshman orientation, they gave us a book of his life, his whole life, how good of a basketball player he was, and how he was off the court and stuff like that. But I knew he was like a legend at Simeon because nobody gets a book just to pass out. Like he got his own book at Simeon for freshmen to get.
This kind of an activity is simply not going to be tolerated in this city. We'll do everything that we can possibly do within our power and the command we have under us to see that it is stopped, quelled, and put to rest.
At the time of Ben Wilson's murder, gun and gang violence were shoved into the spotlight. Simeon students gathered thousands of signatures, asking for a ban on the sale of handguns in the city. Today, 25 years later, the tragedies continue.
No one has done anything. I've been listening to the same thing since Benji died. Benji's dead and he's not coming back, and the rest of these people, 10 years, 20 years from now, I think it's still going to be going on.
Said by some that you do the same thing over and over again, expect different results, is one definition of being crazy. He was an unarmed young man killed in broad daylight before other students. We can't get over it. Nor should we get over it. It should remind us that none of us are secure. All of us are secure.
We'll never know where Ben Wilson would have ended up, surely in the NBA, maybe in the Hall of Fame. But 25 years after 25, the legend and legacy are still part of Chicago.
It affected everyone, so, you know, us immediate players, we talk and keep in touch, and we visit him at the cemetery often.
The emotion that you go through when you lose somebody, it's not them, but I mean, I hope Benji will be an example forever. Even when, seriously, because his life meant something. Imagine, 17-year-old kid still being talked about, and I think Benji will forever always be talked about. He is a story that is timeless for every generation.
I guess, some things you never forget, and I just can't forget it.
– 17 years old, and look how many lives he touched.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't know if you ever watched the ESPN has this documentary series called 30 for 30, and they have one called Benji. It was actually produced by Cody and Chike. Those are the two that produce music videos for Kanye and several other hip hop artists. But it's real good. It came out in 2012. But if you can find it, because it's kind of hard to find it on streaming. But yeah, I would suggest you watch that one as well, because they also interview they also interview Ben Wilson's killers. So because they had just got out of jail. So yeah, they interviewed Billy Moore and the other guy. I can't think of his name. But yeah, and they kind of tell their side of the story, because most people automatically assume that these guys were just murderers, and they they were just common criminals. But I don't know if it was Billy, but he told a story where Ben actually he was I think he was the shooter, and he actually was just kind of threatening Ben Wilson because of the war going on between Calumet students and Simeon students. And and it doesn't say it makes it any right or anything, because first of all, a 17-year-old like him ain't supposed to be having a gun anyway. But he said that, I think he said that Benji had lunged at him. Now, mind you, this Billy is like he's like small. He's like, I don't even think he's 6 foot, whereas Ben is like 6'8". And I guess he said he feared for his life and shot him. So it's it's interesting to hear that side, because what I gathered, and this is not on record or anything like that, but there was a lot of stuff going on between Simeon students and Calumet students during that time, and several other schools that were at rivals as well. And needless to say, while Ben wasn't directly involved in it, some of his family members were, and it may have been an issue where Ben got associated with certain or be affiliated with certain crews and gangs during that time. I vividly remembered murders going up during that time. And I find it interesting because it's like when we was reviewing Harold Washington, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, the 80s, there was some, and I was looking at the pictures of Ben Wilson's funeral, and I was like, wow, the 80s, Chicago has some big funerals during that time. We were talking about Harold Washington, Ben Wilson, and then we talked about another guy, Fluky Stokes, who had a huge funeral as well. So during the 80s, Chicago, had some interesting characters who passed away, and their funerals was a huge turnout.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I see Big Mike and Hiram, because they seem like they grew up in Chicago as well, like me. And yeah, Julian and Corliss, Finger and Carver. Hiram said or high school. So all those groups. And even when I was at Morgan Park, like we had we had a gang population in Morgan Park as well, even though Morgan Park academically was actually one of the better schools on the South Side as far as a public school. At Morgan Park, you had an option of learning 9 different languages. We had an international exchange program. The racial disparities at Morgan Park was more diverse than most of the public schools on the South Side, because we still had a number of white students, most of them from Mount Greenwood, still coming to Morgan Park. So and then we had a number of Latino students during that time. Now, mind you, this is like the late 80s, early 90s. So we still had a diverse population, but then also too we had gang issues as well. And Morgan Park basically kind of succumbed to what some of the other schools was already facing, like Julian and Finger and Corliss and even Simeon. Now, what's interesting, and this is something that I was talking to a teacher that works at Morgan Park, and she was telling me Simeon has become an academic. It has become more of an academic school in Morgan Park now.
Wow. Okay, that's something.
Yeah, because back when I was going to school, Simeon was the basketball school.
Mm-hmm.
Simeon they were always, in the state, they were always in the state, not state, but city championship, sometimes going down state, sometimes winning state. Mm-hmm. They used to have all the great players. And, when I was going to Morgan Park, our basketball teams were crappy. I mean, I remember there was a game we were down like 30-70 against Simeon.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, but the thing was that we were the academic school. We concentrated more on academics. And I remember a friend of mine, he was on the basketball team on his freshman year. He transferred over to Simeon. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, and he went to Simeon when they had this player named Deion Thomas. Deion Thomas was he was like one of the top 3 players in high school players in the nation during that time. And Simeon, they lost to the city championship against King High School, but he played on that team, and then he came back to Morgan Park. And then I asked him, I said, I was like, why would you come back to Morgan Park? Because, Morgan Park was, like I said, during my time, Morgan Park was terrible. And he said, Gardis, I'm going to tell you this. I wasn't learning nothing up there. Like, it was just like my whole day was about basketball. And he was like, I felt like, all like my math teachers and my English teachers, all they want to talk to me about is how'd the team do. And so when he figured that his academics was hurting, but he had a better profile as a basketball player beyond that team, he came back to Morgan Park because he felt like I had to learn something. And I always give him credit for that because I was like, wow, you know what? He had enough maturity to understand that, my academics is lacking here. So let me go back to the school that I originally came from. because he also told me this. He said, Gardis, even though I was on a good team and I probably could have, and he did play college ball as well, but he said I could never, it's like I wasn't good enough to go to the NBA. So he knew back then, was like, I'm not going to be in the NBA. And that's why he came back to Morgan Park. Because he was like, because I mean, Simeon was kind of like a basketball factory, but he knew he wasn't one of those guys. Like he played with Deion Thomas, and Deion was like that guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Big Mike said back then, if you want to go to the NBA, Simeon, Corliss, and Finger was your best bet. If you want to go to an Ivy League, Whitney Young, Jones, Gwendolyn Brooks were the site.
Yeah. I mean, he's right, but yeah, my friend who was, he was just a role player on the Simeon team. It was like, I'm not going to the league, so might as well go back to get a diploma. Finish out my high school.
That is very smart for somebody that young.
Exactly, because Simeon and King were the two major high school basketball programs in the city. Like if you went to one of those schools, you were guaranteed. So Big Mike, you missed King High School.
Now, was King on the west side? Because I know
No,
some. Okay, it's
no.
a.
King is in Bronzeville. It's on 49th and Drexel, I think.
What's the name of that high school where the girls could go to basketball? It was on the west side. It was the best high school for
Oh, you
women
talking about
basket.
Marshall? Marshall, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Marshall, yeah. Marshall had a good women's program. Was it Dorothy Gators? I
Yeah,
think
I
Dorothy
think
Gators
that
was the
was
coach.
it.
Yeah, Dorothy Gators
Yeah.
was the coach, and she was legendary coach. Now, what was so interesting is during my time at Morgan Park, we actually had a good girls basketball team.
Okay. All right.
And that was our only program that was good, as far as athletics. And I remember they played this game against Marshall, and they took Marshall, I think, in the overtime or something like that. But that was when we knew we were a good team because we gave Marshall a run. Marshall was like the king of girls basketball in Chicago during that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And still to this day, I think people, I know people that be like, I go to Morgan Park, and the second school is Whitney Young. Like to this day, I know a friend of mine, her niece, they drive far and wide to get her to Whitney Young every day because of their, I guess, academics, right?
Yeah, because Whitney Young is a selective enrollment school.
Mm.
Well, I know back then it was, but I'm not sure how it is now. I think it still is selective enrollment, but that's why they were able to get people from all over the city to come. What's interesting is when Whitney Young started to turn their their athletics around. Look, they were getting players from my neighborhood. And one guy who played for Whitney Young, Quentin Richardson. Quentin Richardson's family lived in Morgan Park. But I mean, he was going all the way to, he was going all the way to Whitney Young. So
Wow. Yeah, growing up, Morgan Park was such a fancy high school for us. It was a big thing when people went to Morgan Park. So we're gonna have to do a video about high schools because I think that's kind of interesting because I remember like the big city schools so let's do the finish Billy's side of the story, but Simeon is a popular school. Was Morgan Park as popular where y'all have big reunions like Simeon does?
oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to maybe one or two of those big reunions. And it's mostly because sometimes I don't feel like it. And sometimes I'm just kind of like I actually sometimes I'm busy or I can't go. So but I know like some of my family members go, people that I still talk to from high school, they go, but I'm like, man,
Yeah. Now I have Potato calling. I'm hoping this is Potato because Potato's never called in. So if it's not Potato, I'm gonna hang up. Okay. Okay. All right, Potato. I'm bringing you up. Hey, Potato. How are you today? Hello.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
We're doing well. I had to
Hello.
check to see if it was really you.
Oh, I know.
We got what's it called, Guardians? We gotta I gotta like I gotta like investigate in the background or
I
something.
know.
Security clearance. How are you, Potato?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing great this morning. Got up early, got my package sent out that I wanted to, and went to Lowe's. Unfortunately, they didn't have what I was looking for, which doesn't surprise me at all. But
Oh,
other than that, doing great.
okay, great. Thank you so much. Look, I'm gonna have to email you. Thank you, Potato.
Oh, you got an email this morning.
I
I
did.
sent you one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, okay, I'm gonna check as soon as we get off live. Now, did you know anything about Ben Wilson? Or are you just
Uh,
hanging out with us?
no, I didn't know anything about Ben Wilson. I was just hanging out.
Okay,
But
cool.
the story is interesting, though. Watching some of it and all that, I'm definitely going to check out videos on it and everything else. But another good video, people really, it aired on, I think, Netflix
Mm-hmm.
or no, it was on Disney Plus that a lot of people don't obviously talk a lot about and stuff like that. There was a Clemson University safety on the football team. about his struggles that he went through, which is actually a very good clip. That's, I'm not gonna say like local to me, but is in my state, and it was a big like story when all of it happened here in the state. But yeah, it's definitely a good movie to check out about, you know, what these, we'll say, college athletes go through on a real life basis,
Mm-hmm.
and the decisions they make, you know, or they have to make in these circumstances. And the one thing about that movie which stands out is it actually changed the way, some of the way that NCAA looks at, as far as like player support, supporting their players.
Oh, you know what? I think I know what you're talking about. Was that the one who had the little brother he had to take care of?
Yes, because his
Okay.
mom was addicted to
Yeah.
drugs, always
Mhm.
in like rehab and struggling with it really bad. He took guardianship of his little brother. But yeah, the name of the movie is called Safety. It's about a Clemson University, um, you know, football safety. So yeah, it's actually a
write that
very
on our
good
list.
movie, all real life. I will testify to it because I lived here and followed the story very closely when it was like big news down here.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna put that on our list for the Clemson University.
Yes, the name of the movie is called Safety. I can't remember the player's name off the top of my head, but
I'm gonna pull it up.
it's a really good movie, and it changed the way that NCAA looked at um, how, we'll say, alumni and, you know, their athletic programs can actually support the college athletes, as far as like when stuff like that happens, because that guy right there, he was ready to give it all up just to take care of his little brother.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to cover this story. This is it's a Ray.
Yeah, Ray.
Okay. This is interesting. This is interesting. Now, I don't know about football or basketball. What's NCAA? Is that for college or high school? What is that?
The NCAA, I mean, a lot of the, we'll say, like sports fanatics in here will know what NCAA is, but it's more of like the National College Athletics Association.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
that's the acronym.
yeah, that's basically like the people who set the guidelines for how they can recruit um, their players, what they're allowed to get. In other words, like NCAA puts down, they can't give them a car to come play for them. You know, oh, we're going to give you this, like, you know.
Oh,
Two,
I don't know, Potato. It's different now.
well,
With
yeah, a
NIL
lot of
deals and
things,
stuff.
have changed now with their drafting and stuff like that. But back then, it was like, you know, if a college had given one of their players a car as an incentive to come play with them, they would suffer like severe penalties, fines, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now it's, I'm not even gonna lie, it's a mess right now. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago there was some players, and I believe it was led by football players from Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, they wanted to sue the NCAA because the NCAA for years, and I think Potato had articulated it well about how they were very restrictive on players getting compensation for anything. Well, these players, along with some other past NCAA athletes, sued the NCAA for using their images and likenesses to sell, you know, to make profit off of, but yet the players don't get anything. So they won their case, and at that point, the NCAA kind of restructured itself. So now colleges can actually give what's called the NIL deal. It's a name, image, and likeness. So basically, they give these college players compensation for using their name. This is why you see, because before you hardly see college players on commercials, if any, because, college players are not supposed to be paid. But now you see college, like especially like these star athletes who are possible, pro draft picks, they're on commercials all the time now. The guy who's the quarterback for the Bears, Caleb Williams, he was making commercials while he was at USC, making millions of dollars too. So the NCAA is different now because of the fact that now it's more of an open market to get paid. They pay college athletes some sort of deal, and this is why you have I think the moniker of student athlete is probably null right now. Just say athlete, because most of these guys, especially guys who are pro potential, they're not going to classes. Why would I go to class when, first of all, I'm getting an NIL deal from the college, some of them over $1 million, and then secondly, why would I work to get my degree? And in basketball, it's even worse because with basketball, most people who come to college, they only stay a year, especially if they're projected to be a top 10 pick. Well, whereas in football, you have to stay at least 3 years before you can go to the NFL. So that's a little different. But in basketball, yeah, you're only required to stay 1 year, and that's it.
See, a lot of I hate to say it, but these kids, in my opinion, yeah, they're supposed to be grown adults, young adults going to college, but I'm still going to call them kids going to these colleges. They go in there knowing that they're great at this sport. They're going to possibly get picked up by NFL, NHL, NBA, NBL. And they know that within, like, after a year that they can be drafted in playing for this team or that team, and oh yeah, I'm gonna get this contract for this amount. And unfortunately, I have a friend who was in that situation. He played for the Atlanta Braves. He only played college ball for actually 2 years. He got pulled right out as a sophomore, never finished his degree and all that, but then ended up getting hurt. So, yeah, the whole time I kept trying to tell him, and this is back in like, late 80s, early 90s. And I kept trying to tell him, like, dude, get your college degree. That way you always have something to fall back on. Get your education. They're paying for it. Get that free education. You're in my opinion, you're not smart giving up that free education that you can get. Get that education. Wait, all you're going to do is make it better for yourself. And now he, I'm not calling out his name because I don't want nobody looking him up and all that. But, now he works in a plant and he just does the same mundane job doing the same thing every day. And he literally played for the Atlanta Braves.
Wow. And with that education, he could have did like I said, I don't know much about sports, but like sports casters and stuff like that, right? He could have did something else if he would have went through college.
Well, I mean, yeah, if he would have finished his college for whatever he wanted to major in, he could have pursued a career in that with, a college degree. Now he can still go back and do it, but now he has to pay for it all out of his pocket.
I was about to say, would they, because he did play for the Braves, they wouldn't pay for his college now, huh?
No.
Oh, that
No,
sucks.
they won't.
Oh my gosh. It should be, yeah. Okay, well, we're going to continue with this Ben Wilson story. Potato, thank you. We'll do I put safety on our list of conversation. I appreciate you.
Nah, no problem.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Potato.
No problem. Bye.
All right, bye.
I love hearing you guys' voices now. It's so cool. And I want to point something out. And thank you for calling, Potato. I want to point something out because what's so cool about it is, first of all, love Potato accent. Love it. And what's so cool about it is, speaking on people that's hanging out with me like Potato, that probably met me just during the Dalton stuff. We didn't have to beg for likes. We got Gardens. We had 12 people watching and got 12 likes. We didn't even, I didn't have to say hit the like. I love you guys so much. I just wanted to share that. It's so funny because just to hear Potato voice, and I just met Potato just like I met you, Gardens, and you sticking around. And Big Mike, you guys didn't know Cynthia. You guys weren't on my channel when I was covering Sister Wives. So it's just really cool. So I just wanted to thank everybody.
Yeah. So going back to Ben Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
Ben is one of the biggest what ifs.
Yep.
Oh, Mike asked me who was the better running back between Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith. Barry Sanders, hands down. Barry Sanders.
So what? Barry Sanders' son wasn't good? Is that what Big Mike is saying? Stanford gave Barry Sanders' son a full ride because they thought he was going to be a beast.
Well, yeah. I mean, people are very much into genetics, and
like Marcus Jordan, right?
exactly.
Marcus and it's another one I forgot. It's
and same thing they're doing with LeBron James' son. Like everybody's expecting, the sons to be as great as the fathers, and people just don't realize that in most cases they don't even work out that way. I can only think of, let me see. There was in sports, when a father and a son goes to the league or they play professional sports, one of them is always better than the other. When you think about Barry Sanders and his son, and I don't even think Barry Sanders' son went to the league, but then you think about Walter Payton and his son Jared Payton. Now Jared went to the league as well, but was nowhere near his dad. But then you have like the sons who become better than their fathers. So like Steph Curry and Dell Curry. So Dell Curry used to play for for Charlotte and I think Toronto. But even though Dell was the father, Dell was like a rotational player. Like he's the guy that came off the bench. Steph is like one of the best players of all time, but he turned out to be better than his father. And the same thing with Joe Bryant and Kobe Bryant. Joe Bryant was a rotational guy off. I think he played for the San Diego Clippers, who was a average to marginal player. And then you got Kobe Bryant, who one of the best players of all time. So it's either the father or the son who becomes the great player. Rarely do you find in sports both father and son Hall of Famers. If I could remember, Bobby and Brett Hall, they played hockey. Bobby Hall and Brett Hall are Hall of Famers, and I'm missing another one. There's another father and son duo who are Hall of Famers, but yeah, Barbie and Brett Hall are, I think, the only ones. And I know I'm missing. I think it's Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. I think Ken Griffey Sr. might be a Hall of Famer, but I'm not sure.
And it was these race car drivers. Is it the Earnharts?
Yeah, Dale Earnhardt. Yeah.
And then don't forget Magic Johnson and EJ Johnson. No, I'm just playing. I love EJ.
Okay.
That's my fashion side.
Okay, but Ben, if you look at the projection of what Ben's career was going, because if Ben wasn't tragically murdered, he was basically on his way, and most people would say he possibly would have been playing at Illinois. Probably would have stayed at home, played at Illinois, and he would have played on a team that everybody in Chicago during the late 90s remembers, the Flying Illini. That was the team with Kendall Gill and Nick Anderson and Marcus Liberty and Stephen Bardo. he would have been on that team as a senior, and that I would probably say, because they ended up losing to Michigan in the semifinals. And one of the problems Illinois had during that time against Michigan was they didn't have no size, because Michigan was big, and you had Ben Wilson, who was 6'8". He would have definitely helped them out at that moment in time. So you would have we just all imagine like Ben being on that team, they win the championship, and then he goes to the NBA draft and gets picked in the top 3 or whatever. And yeah, and then at that point he launches an NBA career in 89, 90.
No, man. Okay, we're gonna hear Billy's side of the story, and it's only like 3 minutes long. Gardis, I have a question. You said, if he would have been here, was that Michigan team? Because I do watch some of the 30 for 30. Was that the one when like what's his name? Like the 5 Michigan.
The Fab Five? No, that wasn't the Fab Five.
Okay.
That was the team before the Fab Five.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's hear Billy's side of the story, guys.
I'm supposed to be going to lunch. Benji was like, y'all go ahead, I'm coming. I'm coming in school. He on his way out the door. I'm like, where you going, boy? He like, I'm finna walk my girl to the bus stop. All of a sudden, I just get shoved out of the way. And it was with a lot of force. He kept walking. Him and his girlfriend, they were arguing, so I said, hey man, ain't you gonna say excuse me? And he stopped and turned around. He said, man, you, I don't owe you no excuse. Who is you? I'm like, nah, you. And she like, and this is when I hear his name, come on, Ben, let's go, Ben. And she grabbed him. I say, man, don't walk up on me. If I do, then what? If I walk up, now what? And he like, he just straight punking me now. So I step back and unzip my jacket. So I'm figuring, he see this gun, he gonna leave. And his girlfriend just goes hysterical when she see the gun, And he like, oh, you got a gun? What you gonna do, shoot me now? I take 2 steps backwards and he lunges towards me. I pulls the gun out and shot him twice.
I heard what I thought was rocks hitting the window. When I ran out, I called to Billy, and he just took off, and Ben was standing there, like kind of wobbling, like he didn't know what to do. So we thought if we don't sit him down, he's gonna fall. And I can hear him breathing hard and hard and harder. And he finally sat down, and then he just dropped his head. I turned to look, and everybody was coming from the school. Like, the whole school was running towards that place. I knew Billy, and I knew Ben, so I could not stay there.
I never will forget the first day that I was taken to court from the police station. It was a bailiff, a little old lady. She told me to my face. She said, you the one shot that boy? She said, I hope they give your ass the death penalty and I be the one to pull a switch on you.
The only time I could ever think of wanting to kill somebody was when the guys killed Benji.
It took the jury just over an hour to find both defendants guilty on all counts. Dixon was sentenced to 30 years in prison, Moore to 40 years.
That's sad. I can understand. I was gonna ask, did they even know each other? But it seems like it was that young lady that knew both of them, and she had to get out of there because I guess she would be a witness. This is hard. This is a hard situation. It's one more video. I saw that it's a radio host, Sway. He was interviewing Ben Wilson best friend. I'm gonna go ahead and take the hit. It's on Revolt, so I'm gonna go ahead. I know they're gonna. So you guys who haven't caught it live, we might have to edit this out later. But let's go ahead and play that where Ben Wilson best friend meets Billy. So 40 years, how did they get out? Does anyone know how they got out? So, well, 40 years, 1984. 30 years. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that's about right. Okay, let's go.
I did 19 for first degree murder. I did 19 years and 9 months. At 16 years old, I went to prison for first degree murder. I did 19 years and 9 months, came home, pretty much did everything I could to get my life back on track. And I was approached to actually tell my side of the story about what really happened. And in me doing that, Mario Coleman, who is now one of my closest friends, was able to hear it for the first time, how his best friend lost his life, what actually happened that day. And from that, me and him pretty much decided that we would do whatever we could to try to use this as a means to show how we can stop kids from killing each other in that cycle of violence.
How were you able to forgive him, and accept him now as one of your best friends?
I did understand that he was just 15, 16 years old, such as myself. And it was a situation that had gone bad. So I just felt like it was necessary for me to show some love. So I met Billy, and the first thing I did when I talked to Billy, I asked him what happened. Because it bothered me to not really know the truth. Once he told it to me, I think we shook hands, we hugged, and we've been good. The program that we're trying to do is going to be the start of something great.
Okay.
We're going to start to provide an economical structure for the children.
Okay, and then I'm gonna play this one here where the brothers actually forgave Omar, I think it was the Omar Dixon. Um, and we'll see this side of the story as well.
They're going to have accountability because now we're going to know where they at because they working. We want to try to get the banks that we're working with to help us get the kids paid so that they can get a debit card or, have a bank account with the banks in the area. And just give these kids an opportunity. We keep turning our backs on them. We keep showing them that it's okay to be messed up, and it's really not.
Yeah.
What we got to do also is realize, like what Mario said, how do we create value within the individual? Ain't no outside help gonna come. So we got to address that within our own self.
So we got to take care of our own community, take
Absolutely.
responsibility for our own selves.
Man, most definitely.
Oh wow, I'm having trouble pulling up the this is the article, but it would not play. Let me just share that part. And this happened in 2020. Um I guess no one was there, but his um child's mother, and this is the only people that could tell us the story, Ben, the two, and so it says the brothers of Chicago high school star Ben Wilson, who was viewed as the top player in the nation before his murder in 1984, said that they forgave the shooter. Anthony Wilson said he was asked if he was crazy for a meeting with William Moore, the man convicted of gunning down Ben Wilson. Anthony Wilson, along with his brother Jeffrey, agreed to meet with Moore after his mother, Mary Wilson, asked the family on her deathbed in 2000 to forgive Moore. The right thing to do is to meet with this man, get the closure that I need, heal myself. It's one of the best moments of my life. Okay. What do you think about that, Gardes?
Well, I mean, it's a tragic story, but I mean, there's got to be a way. There's got to be ways that we got to heal. And listening to Billy, because I don't know if that clip was from the Benji documentary. I think that was. I think it was from the Benji documentary.
Okay.
Because that documentary came out in 2012. So listening to that story and actually hearing it from some people in the streets about Ben Wilson actually being aggressive towards the shooter kind of gives you a perspective of what was going on in Chicago during that time. And how I've always said this, whereas sometimes you just don't want to mess with strangers that you don't know, because you never know what they have or what their intentions are, or what's going to happen to you. So even though Ben was 6'8", he was a big guy. Some people who have that type of size would automatically assume that I could beat anybody out here. But even the strongest can get shot as well. So it's an unfortunate tragedy. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. But there's got to be a level of healing for the family, and I think that was great that Billy and who's the other guy that was on the Revolt show?
I think Omar. Oh no, the Mario.
Mario. Yeah. I mean, it was great that they're they're helping out the youth. But I also want to comment on that too, because I've been on several panels and symposiums about how do we stop the violence in Chicago. And a lot of times it always delves into the issue of economics. Let's get the youth a job, or let's help them make money or something like that. And to me, it doesn't really solve the issue. I mean, it's part of it, but when you look at the economics of the inner city, and especially in areas where you see a lot of this violence, many of those people are economically deprived. And so I always say that there's different components to it, because it took a long time for the system to break down these neighborhoods and devolve them into areas where we see now in the city. Heck, we're seeing it out here in the Southland as well. But I always say this conversation always directs towards money, and money isn't always the answer to everything. Because what about consistency? What about these children still getting a good education? What about these children being in stable homes where they don't get abused sexually or physically or even mentally? Because that's something we don't talk about as well. Many of our children in these homes are getting mentally abused. So there's a lot of things that factor into this violence in Chicago. And for some reason, it always devolves into, well, what can we give these children monetarily? And don't get me wrong, I would love to give children, economic opportunities, but that's not the end all be all. We gotta think differently. We gotta think differently on this, because I'm pretty sure Ben Wilson, despite the fact that he wasn't rich at that time, everybody knew that he was going to be in the league and be a millionaire one day. And I'm pretty sure colleges was probably recruiting him, giving him money as well. I mean, that's an underground secret for, great basketball players in high school. But, his issue wasn't economics. His issue wasn't, poor and being destitute. It was just the issue of he ran into the wrong guy that day.
You're right. Okay. let's go to the tribute that Ben Wilson got in 2022.
Chicago took steps to make sure his name is never forgotten. In 1980,
he was a high school basketball standout on the path to stardom when he was senselessly gunned down.
today, Chicago took steps to make sure his name is never forgotten. In 1984, Ben Wilson was the top high school basketball player in the country, having just led Simeon High School to their first ever state title. On the eve of the first game of his senior season, he was shot and killed by someone from a rival school. The gunman served almost 20 years before his release in 2004. Well, today, on the 38th anniversary of his death, the city renamed the intersection of 78th and Eberhart in his honor. The ceremony was attended by Ben's family, several former teammates, and community leaders, including 6th Ward Alderman Roderick Sawyer.
Fitting tribute there.
Together. Very nice.
Okay, 17 years old. What a legacy. What a legacy.
Yeah.
And his mother said it right? It's not how long you live, it's what you do with it, with the years you lived.
Yeah, that's it's absolutely true. It was a tragic time during that time, seeing a guy with promise being gunned down like that. Me back then, I was, like I said, I was still in, what was I? I think I was like in 6th grade when that happened. But watching that and watching how the neighborhood started to turn during that time as well, because that was during the time that the crack epidemic started to grow. And even though Ben's death was totally unrelated to drugs, it was just the simple fact that many people started feeling unsafe, including the students. This is why Billy had a gun, and because he felt like lines were being drawn in his neighborhood, and certain gangs, certain schools were having beefs with each other, and this is what happens when you have a city on edge. And it's sad too, because it was the same year Harold Washington became mayor, and you would figure that would be more celebrated than anything that year. But then when you think about 1984, the one thing we remember is Ben Wilson getting killed.
Wow. And Billy going to jail at 16, I'm sure going to prison at 16, that probably definitely he has a story alone on that.
Yeah.
1984 had a lot going on. We're going to cover more Chicago things that happened during the 80s. Thank you so much. Our prayers to the family of Ben Wilson, the brothers, and Miss Jatan and everyone. Any final words, Gardis?
No, this was a good flashback to kind of remember and kind of kind of pinpoint on several topics when you talk about sports, when you talk about Chicago, when you're talking about city politics, when you're talking about the social conditions of Black Chicago during that time. I think the Ben Wilson story intersects all of those things, and I think it's an interesting topic to touch on when you think about all of those factors and all of those issues that Chicago was going through during that time. And unfortunately, it still lingers today. It may look different now, but we're still dealing with crime. We're still dealing with economic deprivement. And just imagine too, what was the Southland looking like in 1984?
Oh, right. It was
wasn't a lot of us around here.
No. It was just very interesting. Like just to see the young man that you said you were playing Sega with, that you knew from Thornton Fractional, That's when they were called the Rebels. It's no way he would have been a coach in 1984. It's very interesting to see what happened when the Southland changed. The 80s, how it changed.
Yeah, because like I said, 1984, I'm pretty sure 75 to 80% of these municipalities in the Southland were predominantly white. I definitely know South Holland was mostly white, if not all white in 84.
Yeah, very Dutch in '84. South Holland was.
Exactly.
But I remember that I didn't know Melanie Youngsma. She did a story that we should check out on the Lansing Journal, and it was talking about how TF North or South. I always get them confused. One is purple. I think North is the one in Calumet City. Okay. The South one, they had a big fight about how their mascot was the Rebels and what it meant, and part of the flag. I forget that flag. I'm sorry. I know the flag. They
The
were still,
Confederate flag.
yeah, they were still using it. They were still
Mhm.
using it, and I'm like, oh my goodness. This is interesting.
Yeah.
This is interesting in their logos, and some people were trying to fight. And District 215, just to put that up, just we have so much, like, just talking about the Southland, like you said, Ben Wilson. We could just go on and on and on how things were different out here, and the economics of the South Side. And you guys opened my eyes to recruiting. Like, I didn't even know what you and Hiram were talking about, like King recruiting tactics. I want to look into that now. I don't even know anything about that. This is interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
he said it was unethical. I mean, in some cases it might be illegal, but there was a Sun Times article. I don't know if you knew. There was an NBA player called Antoine Walker. Antoine Walker, yeah, Antoine Walker played for Mount Carmel when he was high school. Played for University of Kentucky, then he went to the NBA. Played for several teams. I think he got drafted by the Celtics. Sonny Cox, who was the coach of King High School during that time, tried to recruit Antoine Walker to go to King. Apparently, he offered Antoine Walker, I think he gave him like $500. He gave him a $500 check. Sun Times did an article on that, and Antoine Walker basically kind of spilled the beans on it. They had a picture of him with the check.
Whoa.
I was like, man, I should have saved that article. But yeah, they had a picture of him with the check, claiming that King was trying to buy him to come over to, Sonny Cox was claiming to buy him to come over to play for King High School.
Whoa. This is interesting. You guys open my eyes to so many things daily. And I have a list full. Barry Sanders is on the list. Big Mike.
Well, that's for pure sports fans, because outside of football, Barry Sanders has lived actually a normal life. Like, Barry Sanders is one of the few NFL players that that went drama free, but he was also a superstar player as well. So you're not gonna find much about Barry Sanders except sports fans talking about who was greater between him and Walter Payton.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Gardis. I appreciate you. Y'all, I had a great conversation. Gardis, thank you for always coming up and saving the show.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
You guys, yeah, this was a, tragedy. Uh, I learned a lot. Thanks for watching it with me. We'll be going over some more um stories, and we'll be trying to do an evening show with some guests. Tomorrow I'm off, but I'm gonna take Sunday off. But Monday we'll be back with The Brock's Candy Heiress. Oh my goodness, that's a story by itself. A Chicago story is something else. Thanks for sticking with me, you guys. I appreciate you so much. Oh, and for those that were members, and we did a live last night, I'll put it back up. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like putting too much out there with anybody else information. So we had a great conversation, but I just wanted to blurb some out really quickly, and then that's it. It was no big deal. It was so funny. Uh you guys really, I had so much fun in the live last night. You guys had me cracking up. And then we'll finish the rest of Martin's show. All right, you guys. As always, enjoy your Saturday and take care of yourself and each other. Bye bye.